My son found a photo album in the attic. Every photo is of our family, but I'm not in any of them. There's a different woman standing where I should be. Lucas is 12. He was looking for Halloween decorations when he found the album. Red leather cover, gold trim. He brought it downstairs excited to see old pictures. I opened it and my blood went cold. There was my husband, my children, my house, my kitchen, my living room, but the woman in every photo wasn't me. She was blonde. I'm brunette. She had green eyes. Mine are brown. She was tall and elegant. I'm short and ordinary, but she was standing exactly where I stand in every photo. Arm around my husband, hand on my son's shoulder, sitting in my chair at my table in my home. Mom, who is that? I couldn't answer. I didn't know. That night, I confronted my husband. I put the album on the bed between us. Who is she? Daniel looked at the photos for a long time. Then he looked at me with an expression I'd never seen. Fear and grief and something like relief all tangled together. That's you. That's not me. I don't look anything like that woman. You did. Before the accident. The room tilted. What accident? He sat down heavily. 8 years ago. You were driving home from your sister's house. A truck ran a red light. The impact was on your side. You were in surgery for 14 hours. I had no memory of this. None. The physical damage was extensive. Third-degree burns, broken bones. They had to reconstruct most of your face. Skin grafts. Multiple surgeries over 2 years. The woman you see in photos is who you were. The woman in the mirror is who they rebuilt. I touched my face. A face I'd known for as long as I could remember, which apparently wasn't that long. I don't remember any of this. The brain trauma caused retrograde amnesia. You lost about 15 years of memories. The doctors said they might come back. They never did. He took my hands. When you finally came home, you didn't recognize yourself. You'd look in mirrors and ask who that woman was. It terrified you. So we removed all the old photos. We packed them away. We let you become who you are now without the ghost of who you used to be. I thought about my life. My earliest clear memory was waking up in what I now realize was a rehabilitation facility. Daniel told me I'd been sick. I accepted it. The kids knew. Lucas was 4. He adapted. He just knew mommy looked different now and that was okay. Emma was 7. She struggled more. She'd look at you and cry because you didn't look like her mom anymore. It took her years to adjust. I remembered Emma's early reluctance around me, how she'd flinch when I touched her. I thought she was just a difficult child. She was grieving a mother who died without dying. Why didn't you tell me the truth? Because the doctors said forcing memories could cause psychological collapse. You'd already survived something impossible. We couldn't risk losing you again by making you relive it. He opened the album to a wedding photo. The blonde woman in white, Daniel in a suit, both of them radiating joy. That was the happiest day of my life. You were so beautiful. And then you were broken. And then you were rebuilt into someone new. And I realized something. He touched my face. My rebuilt face. I didn't fall in love with your appearance. I fell in love with you. Your laugh, your kindness, your terrible cooking that somehow still tastes like home. All of that survived the accident. The package changed, but everything that matters stayed the same. I stared at the blonde woman in the photos. My hands, my children, my husband, my life from before I became me. I want to remember her. You don't have to. She was you. You're still you, just in a different body. I spent the next week looking through the album, learning the woman I used to be. She liked gardening. I like gardening. She read mystery novels. I read mystery novels. She sang off-key in the car. I sing off-key in the car. The face changed. The soul didn't. Emma came to my room one night. She's 15 now. She sat on my bed and looked at the album with me. I missed her so much, she admitted. When you came back looking different, I felt like I'd lost my mom even though you were right there. I'm sorry I was cold to you. You were 7. You'd just watched your mother's face disappear. But you were still in there. It just took me a long time to see it. She pointed to a photo of the blonde woman holding baby Lucas. She looks happy. She was. I was. I still don't have memories from before the accident. Maybe I never will, but I have photos now. Evidence of a life I lived in a body I no longer have. I hung one picture in the hallway. The blonde woman laughing at something off camera. My children walk past it every day. That's mom before, Lucas tells his friends casually. She looks different now, but she's still the same person. Some people lose themselves gradually. I lost myself all at once and had to be rebuilt from scratch. But the people who loved the woman in those photos learned to love the woman in the mirror. That's not tragedy. That's proof that love isn't about faces. It's about what survives when everything else burns away.
I told my dad he was a terrible father and I want no contact. I said it at my grandma's 80th birthday lunch. 20 people in a restaurant she'd been excited about for months, and my dad sitting 3 seats down from me doing what he always did at family occasions, performing the version of himself that had nothing to do with the man I grew up with. My dad is charming. That's the thing people never understand when I try to explain it. He's the kind of man who makes waiters laugh and remembers everyone's drink orders and gives toasts that make rooms go quiet in the good way. He is also the man who missed every single one of my football matches for 6 years because something always came up. Who forgot my birthday twice and made me feel guilty for mentioning it. Who told me when I was 16 that I needed to toughen up when I came to him about something that had been happening at school that I'd spent 3 weeks working up the courage to say out loud. I never came to him about anything again after that. I have a son of my own now, Finn, who is 4. I've spent 4 years watching myself parent and understanding with a clarity I couldn't have had before exactly what my dad chose not to do. Every time I show up for Finn, I understand it more. Every time I cancel something that isn't Finn, I understand it more. I'd built an entire way of being a father specifically in opposition to the one I'd had, and I'd never once said that out loud to the man responsible. My dad had been on good behavior all lunch, laughing, attentive, the full performance. My grandma was glowing at the head of the table. Then my dad started telling a story about me as a kid, framed as affectionate but always landing slightly wrong the way his stories did. He said I'd been a sensitive boy who needed a lot of reassurance, and he'd always worried about whether I'd be able to handle the real world. He said it with a smile, in front of my wife, my grandma, and 15 other people while I sat 3 seats down from him. I waited until he finished, then I said his name. He looked at me still smiling. I told him I needed to say something, and I needed him to hear it properly. The table shifted. My wife found my hand under the table. My uncle put his fork down. I told my dad he was a terrible father. Not that he'd made mistakes. Not that we'd had a difficult relationship. That he was a terrible father. I told him I'd come to him at 16 about something serious, and he told me to toughen up, and I'd never come to him about anything again, because that's what you learn when the person who's supposed to be safe isn't. That I had a 4-year-old son, and I'd not once made him feel like a burden for having feelings because I'd grown up knowing exactly what the alternative felt like. That I was done sitting at family tables watching him perform a version of fatherhood he'd never actually shown up for. My dad's smile had gone. He said I was embarrassing my grandma on her birthday. I told him I was telling the truth at her birthday, and those were different things. My grandma reached over and put her hand on my arm, not to stop me, just to say she was there. My dad said I'd always been too sensitive. I told him he'd said that when I was 16, and it hadn't been true then either. My uncle quietly said his name. My dad looked at him and then back at me and then at his plate. plate. I told him I didn't want contact after today, that he could come to family occasions and I'd be civil because I loved my grandma. But I was done pretending between occasions that we had a relationship worth maintaining. He didn't say anything. That silence was the most honest thing he'd offered me in 31 years. My wife drove us home. She didn't say anything for a while. Then she said Finn was lucky. I told her I was just trying to be what I needed when I was 16. She held my hand across the gear stick the whole way home. Subscribe for more stories.
My sister-in-law stole my breast milk because she couldn't produce enough, but refused to ask for help. She went nuts when I put a lock on my freezer. My sister-in-law and I gave birth 3 weeks apart. Her name was Odette, and she married my husband's older brother about 5 years ago. We were never close, but we were cordial at family events. When we found out we were both pregnant at the same time, everyone said it was fate and our children would grow up like siblings. I thought maybe this would bring us closer together. I was wrong. From the beginning, Odette made everything a competition. She announced her pregnancy at my baby shower because she said she couldn't wait any longer. She complained when I chose a nursery theme similar to hers, even though I picked mine first. She got upset when my registry had some of the same items as hers because she said I was copying her. I ignored most of it because I didn't have the energy to fight while growing a human. After the babies were born, things got worse. Odette had trouble with breastfeeding. Her milk supply was low and her son wasn't latching properly. The pediatrician suggested supplementing with formula, but Odette refused. She said formula was poison and she would never give her child anything artificial. She said breast milk was the only acceptable option and she would figure it out. I had the opposite problem. I produced more milk than my daughter could drink. I pumped constantly and stored the extra in my freezer. I had bags and bags of frozen breast milk labeled with dates. I was proud of my supply and relieved that I wouldn't have to worry if something happened and I couldn't nurse for a day or two. Odette knew about my freezer stash because I mentioned it at a family dinner. She asked how much I had and I told her I had enough to feed my daughter for weeks if I needed to. She got quiet after that and changed the subject. A few weeks later, my mother-in-law started hosting weekly family dinners again. She wanted the cousins to bond and the family to stay connected. My husband and I would bring our daughter and spend a few hours at his parents' house every Sunday. Odette and her husband did the same with their son. I noticed Odette would disappear into the kitchen a lot during these dinners. She said she was checking on the babies or getting water or looking for something she left behind. I didn't think much of it. Then I started noticing my freezer stash was shrinking. I counted my bags obsessively because I wanted to track my supply. Every Monday morning after Sunday dinner, I would find fewer bags than I remembered. At first, I thought I was miscounting. Then I thought maybe my husband used some without telling me. He said he didn't. I thought maybe I was losing my mind from sleep deprivation. The bags kept disappearing, 5 or 6 at a time, always after Sunday dinners. I mentioned it to my husband and he said I was probably just using more than I realized. I knew I wasn't. I knew exactly how much my daughter ate and how much I pumped, and the math wasn't adding up. Something was wrong. The next Sunday, I stayed home with a headache and sent my husband to dinner without me. I told him to pay attention to Odette and see if she did anything strange. He came home and said she seemed disappointed I wasn't there. He said she kept asking when I would feel better and if I would come next week. He said she went to the kitchen multiple times, but he didn't see anything unusual. The following Sunday, I went to dinner, but I watched Odette carefully. I saw her go to the kitchen with her large diaper bag. I waited a few minutes and then followed her. She wasn't in the kitchen. She was in the garage where my in-laws kept a second refrigerator. Her diaper bag was open on the floor and she was putting my labeled breast milk bags inside it. I stood in the doorway and asked what she was doing. She jumped and dropped a bag on the floor. She said it wasn't what it looked like. I asked what it looked like because it looked like she was stealing my breast milk. She started crying immediately. She said she wasn't stealing. She said she was borrowing. She said she planned to pay me back when her supply improved. She said her son needed breast milk and she couldn't produce enough and she didn't have any other options. I asked why she didn't just ask me. She said she was embarrassed. She said she didn't want anyone to know she couldn't feed her own baby. She said she figured I had so much I wouldn't even notice. I told her I noticed weeks ago. I told her I thought I was going crazy counting bags that kept disappearing. I told her she took milk I pumped for my daughter without permission, and that wasn't borrowing. That was stealing. She begged me not to tell anyone. She said her husband would be furious. She said my mother-in-law would judge her. She said this would ruin her reputation in the family. I told her she should have thought about that before she took something that didn't belong to her. I left the garage and went back to dinner. I didn't say anything that night because I wanted to think about how to handle it. The next morning, I bought a lock for my freezer, a real lock with a key that only I had. I installed it before the next Sunday dinner. That weekend, Odette showed up with her usual large diaper bag. She disappeared to the kitchen after about an hour. She came back 10 minutes later looking confused. She disappeared again 30 minutes after that. She came back looking panicked. Full story on channel, link below.